Welcome back to our Greyhawk deep dive. We're in the final month of Greyhawk modules before our big finale. And this week, we're diving into Gargoyle, a classic adventure that offers a unique blend of humor, intrigue, and old-school D&D charm. If you want to follow along and really get into the nitty-gritty, we've included a link to the PDF in the video description. What immediately jumps out at you about this one?
Well, Gargoyle stands out because it's designed for lower-level characters, levels 1 to 4 to be exact.
Yep.
This makes it a great entry point for players who are new to D&D or to Greyhawk, but it also presents an interesting challenge for veteran players who might be used to higher-level campaigns.
It's almost like a palate cleanser.
Right, exactly.
A chance to experience Greyhawk on a smaller scale, focusing on local intrigues and challenges rather than world-ending threats. You can really get a feel for the day-to-day life in this setting.
Exactly. And it forces players to rely on their wits, their role-playing skills,
Right.
and their understanding of the game's mechanics, rather than just brute force and powerful magic items. It's a reminder that even at lower levels, D&D can be incredibly engaging and rewarding.
And speaking of engaging, this module has a hook. That immediately grabbed my attention. Detachable gargoyle wings.
Right.
That's not something you see every day,
Oh.
even in a world as fantastical as Greyhawk.
It introduces a unique twist on the classic gargoyle, the Tron gargoyle. These gargoyles have non-magical detachable wings. Imagine being able to just pop off your wings at the end of a long day, no more flapping around, no more getting them caught in doorways. Talk about convenience.
Okay, but as a player, I'm already thinking about the potential complications. What happens if you lose your wings? Do you just plummet to the ground like a stone?
Well, the module actually addresses that without their wings. Tor gargoyles become a bit of a liability in the air. They're described as living pinballs, bouncing off everything in sight. It's a recipe for disaster, but also a source of potential humor and chaos in the game.
So we've got these clumsy gargoyles with detachable wings. And that's where the adventure kicks off. Where does this whole wing-stealing escapade take place?
The story unfolds in Rockburgh on the Marsh, a town nestled on the edge of the Hool Marshes. It's a frontier town, a place where humans and demi-humans coexist, and where danger lurks around every corner. But what's really interesting is Rockburgh's unique relationship with the gargoyles.
Okay.
A sort of uneasy truce established through something called the Gargoyle Treaties.
Treaties with gargoyles. Okay,
Yeah.
This is where things start to get really interesting.
Mm.
You've got these two very different cultures, forced to find a way to live together. I'm guessing those treaties aren't always easy to maintain.
You're absolutely right. The Gargoyle Treaties establish some basic ground rules: non-aggression, no trespassing on Gargoyle Peak, and escorted passage through each other's territories. But those rules are constantly being tested, especially given the inherent distrust between humans and gargoyles.
So it's a powder keg just waiting to explode.
Yeah.
And that's where our story begins,
Exactly.
with the theft of those detachable wings.
The module centers around two young adult gargoyles,
Okay.
Rudy and Hubert, who live in the rafters of the Rockburgh Church. They're described as easygoing but not too bright, and their detachable wings get stolen during a church service. Not exactly the most auspicious start to an adventure.
Down wings, a tense peace treaty, and two clumsy gargoyles. It sounds like the perfect setup for a low-level adventure. It's got humor, intrigue, and the potential for some really interesting role-playing opportunities.
And that's where the players come in. Imagine you're sitting down at the table, ready to embark on a new adventure. Your characters are low-level, just starting to make a name for themselves in the world of Greyhawk. And suddenly, they're thrust into the middle of this bizarre mystery.
It's the classic wrong place, wrong time scenario.
Yeah.
But in the best possible way. You're not saving the world. You're not fighting epic battles against powerful demons. You're dealing with local problems, trying to solve a mystery that has far-reaching consequences for this small community. It's a reminder that even seemingly insignificant events can have a ripple effect in a larger world.
And that's one of the strengths of Gargoyle. It's grounded in the everyday lives of its characters, both human and gargoyle. It's about understanding the complexities of these relationships, the challenges of coexisting with creatures that are so different from ourselves, and the consequences of our actions, both intended and unintended.
So the players are drawn into this mystery. They need to find the stolen wings. But there's more to it than that.
Right.
There's a sense of urgency, a ticking clock. That adds another layer of tension to the adventure.
The timing of the wing theft couldn't be worse. You see, every 3 years, the gargoyles choose a new leader.
No.
And their method of choosing a leader is, well, it's unique. It's a race.
A race. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Where do they race to? What are the rules? And how do detachable wings factor into all of this?
The gargoyles race to a powerful artifact located atop Gargoyle Peak.
Okay.
The first gargoyle to reach this artifact is magically declared the new leader. And as you might have guessed, flight plays a crucial role in this race.
Of course, it all starts to make sense. So the theft of those wings is more than just a prank or a petty crime. It could potentially disrupt the entire leadership structure of the gargoyles.
Precisely. And the consequences of a disrupted leadership race could be dire. The gargoyle treaties could crumble. And Rockburgh could face the wrath of a leaderless, potentially barbaric horde of gargoyles.
Now that's what I call high stakes. So the players are tasked with finding the stolen wings, preventing a potential war between humans and gargoyles, and maybe even ensuring the smooth transition of power within the gargoyle community. And they have to do all of this while navigating the complexities of Rockburgh, dealing with grumpy barkeeps, suspicious apothecaries, and two clumsy, wingless gargoyles.
It's a tall order, especially for a group of low-level adventurers. But that's what makes Gargoyle such a compelling adventure. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for the players to really shine, to use their creativity and problem-solving skills to overcome obstacles and make a real difference in this world.
And speaking of the players, let's talk about the characters they'll be playing. The module provides pre-generated characters.
It does. You have a classic party composition, a fighter, a magic user, a cleric, a thief, and a druid. Each character comes with a detailed backstory and connections to Rockburgh, which helps to immediately ground the players in the setting and provide some ready-made hooks for role-playing.
I always appreciate a good backstory. Especially in a pre-written module, it saves a lot of time and effort for the players. It allows them to jump right into the action. So, without giving too much away, can you give us a taste of what these backstories are like?
Well, there's Emberent, the fighter, a reformed drunkard who owes a debt to Friar Theodos, the cleric who helped him get sober. Then you have Aelin, the elven cleric, who is fiercely independent and harbors a deep distrust of humans, a trait perhaps born from years of observing their actions in Greyhawk.
And how do these characters, their unique backstories and personalities, tie into the mystery of the stolen wings? What brings them together and sets them on this path?
They were all part of a caravan that was ambushed by gnolls and goblins on their way to Rockburgh. This shared experience, this brush with danger, not only establishes a bond between them, but also serves as their introduction to the dangers of the region, a region where even a simple journey can turn deadly.
Ah, yes. Gnolls and goblins. We can't forget about them. They're a staple of D&D. They always seem to be lurking around, causing trouble. But it sounds like their presence in this module is more than just a random encounter. They're connected to the players' backstories, and perhaps even to the larger mystery of the stolen wings.
Exactly. Their presence hints at a deeper conflict, a tension simmering beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful community. And it suggests that the theft of the wings might be just one piece of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that the players will need to unravel if they want to truly understand what's happening in Rockburgh and the surrounding region.
Okay, so the stage is set. We've got our players, their characters, a captivating history, and a looming deadline. But where do they even begin to look for these stolen wings? Rockburgh seems like a pretty big place, and there are likely plenty of suspects, both human and gargoyle.
The module provides a few initial leads, nudging the players in the right direction without railroading them into a specific path. They have Friar Theodos, who can offer some guidance, and perhaps even a few divine insights. And they have the town itself, a melting pot of personalities and secrets just waiting to be uncovered.
So it's up to the players to decide how they want to approach the investigation. Do they go straight to the local authorities? Do they start asking questions in the taverns and back alleys? Do they try to enlist the help of Rudy and Hubert, despite their clumsiness and tendency to cause chaos?
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes Gargoyle so much fun to play. It's open-ended, it encourages exploration and improvisation, and it allows the players to really make the story their own. They can be detectives, diplomats, or even a little bit of both.
And who knows, maybe Rudy and Hubert, despite their best efforts to be helpful, will accidentally stumble upon a crucial clue, or lead the players to an unexpected encounter. After all, in a world as unpredictable as D&D, sometimes the most chaotic paths lead to the most interesting discoveries.
Well said. Gargoyle is full of those unexpected twists and turns. It's an adventure that keeps you guessing, that challenges your assumptions. And that reminds you that even in a world of magic and monsters, it's often the small details, the seemingly insignificant encounters, that hold the key to solving the mystery.
I'm already hooked. We're just scratching the surface of this adventure, and I can't wait to delve deeper into the mysteries of Rockburgh. the intrigue of the Gargoyle treaties, and the chaotic antics of Rudy and Hubert. But that's all the time we have for today. Join us next week for part 2 of our deep dive into Gargoyle, where we'll explore the next stage of the investigation, uncover the secrets of the stolen wings, and perhaps even venture into the perilous Hool Marshes. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow adventurers. We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Gargoyle module. Last time we left our intrepid heroes on the verge of a full-blown crisis, stolen Gargoyle wings, a looming leadership race,
Right.
and the fate of Rockburgh hanging in the balance. They're in the midst of a real whodunit, trying to piece together who would benefit from stealing these wings and why.
And let's not forget about Rudy and Hubert, those two bundles of chaotic energy disguised as gargoyles. For a module that deals with some potentially serious consequences, the lighthearted tone created by these two is quite refreshing.
It really is. It's a delicate balance. And Gargoyle manages to pull it off. On one hand, you have the threat of war, the potential collapse of the Gargoyle treaties, and the implications for the entire region. On the other hand, you have these two bumbling gargoyles, constantly creating mayhem and providing comic relief, reminding us that even in the face of danger, there's always room for a little laughter.
It's a classic D&D trope, isn't it?
It is.
The juxtaposition of the serious and the absurd. It's what makes these adventures so memorable and engaging. You never know what's going to happen next, who you're going to meet, or what kind of crazy situation you'll find yourself in. Speaking of crazy situations, we left our heroes with a few leads to follow right. There was Rosie, the fiery barkeep.
Yeah.
Murphy, the somewhat shady apothecary. Who else were they looking into?
One of the interesting leads the module introduces is Stimson, a dwarf who claims to be an adventurer for hire.
Yep.
Now, I'm always a bit wary of characters who show up offering their services a little too eagerly. It raises a few red flags.
Yeah, that's Greyhawk for you. Never a dull moment. So you're telling me this dwarf just wanders into town and offers to help the player characters find the stolen wings? That's either incredibly convenient or incredibly suspicious.
It's a bit of both, actually. And it's up to the players to decide whether they trust him or not. Do they take him at face value? Or do they see him as a potential rival, someone who might be trying to use them for his own ends?
That's one of the things I love about these classic modules. They give you a framework, a set of possibilities, but they also leave a lot of room for interpretation and player agency. It's not about following a predetermined path. It's about making choices and dealing with the consequences. And speaking of choices, our heroes are facing a big one right now. They have a few leads, but they need to decide where to focus their investigation. Who do they talk to first? Where do they go? It's a real test of their detective skills.
Absolutely. It's a classic branching narrative. Do they pursue Rosie, hoping to pry some information out of her? Do they follow Stimson, wary of his motives but intrigued by his offer? Or do they dig deeper into Murphy's dealings, suspecting that he might be involved in something more than just herbal remedies?
And all the while, they're trying to keep Rudy and Hubert out of trouble, which, let's be honest, is probably a full-time job in itself.
Oh, definitely. The module even includes a flying gargoyle encounter chart, which details the potential mayhem that can ensue when those two try to help with the investigation. Imagine them crashing into a fruit stand, getting stuck in a chimney, or accidentally setting a building on fire. It's chaos, but it's also hilarious.
It's a brilliant way to inject some levity into the adventure, but it also highlights the importance of player agency. How do you, as a dungeon master, incorporate those random encounters without derailing the story or frustrating the players?
It's all about balance and timing. You want those encounters to be entertaining, to add to the overall experience, but you also don't want them to overshadow the main plot or hinder the player's progress.
Right.
It's a matter of reading the table, understanding the player's preferences, and adjusting accordingly.
So let's say the players have followed their leads, they've interviewed suspects, they've endured Rudy and Hubert's help, and they've finally uncovered the identity of the thieves. Who are these masterminds behind the stolen wings?
The culprits are two half-orc assassins named, wait for it, Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry. Seriously.
Yep.
The cat and mouse. That's either the laziest naming convention ever or a stroke of genius.
It's definitely a choice, that's for sure. But it speaks to the module's sense of humor, its willingness to not take itself too seriously. These half-orcs, despite their silly names, are still dangerous assassins, capable of carrying out a complex heist and evading capture.
And they work for Murphy, right, the apothecary. It all starts to connect now.
Well, not exactly. It turns out that Tom and Jerry misunderstood their instructions.
Oh.
They were supposed to steal gargoyle components, perhaps for some alchemical concoction, but they ended up taking the detachable wings instead.
A classic case of mistaken identity. It adds another layer of complexity to the story, doesn't it?
It does.
You have these two bumbling assassins
Yeah.
caught in the middle of a much bigger conflict, and their mistake could have disastrous consequences for everyone involved.
And it raises an interesting question. What happens when the players confront Tom and Jerry? Do they try to reason with them to explain the gravity of their mistake? Or do they resort to more forceful methods?
It's a moral dilemma, and it's one that many D&D players will face at some point in their adventures. When is it justified to use violence? When is diplomacy the better option? And how do you deal with the consequences of your choices?
Gargoyle doesn't shy away from those difficult questions, and that's what makes it such a compelling and thought-provoking adventure. It's not just about fighting monsters and collecting loot. It's about exploring the gray areas of morality, the complexities of interspecies relationships, and the challenges of making difficult choices in a world where the stakes are constantly changing.
And let's not forget about Rudy and Hubert. They're along for the ride whether the players want them there or not. I can only imagine the chaos they'll create during the confrontation with Tom and Jerry.
Imagine trying to conduct a stealth mission with those two stumbling around, crashing into things, and generally making a spectacle of themselves. It's a recipe for disaster. And a whole lot of laughter.
But maybe, just maybe, their clumsiness will work to the player's advantage. Maybe they'll accidentally distract the assassins, or create a diversion that allows the party to gain the upper hand.
That's the beauty of Gargoyle. You never know what's going to happen next. It's an adventure that embraces the unexpected, that encourages players to think on their feet, and that rewards those who are willing to embrace the chaos.
Okay, so the players have tracked down Tom and Jerry, they've confronted the assassins, and they've hopefully retrieved the stolen wings. But their mission is far from over. They still need to get those wings back to Rockburgh before the gargoyles declare war on the town. And they need to do it without getting caught by the local authorities, who are likely on high alert after the theft.
And let's not forget about the other players in this game. The gargoyle factions themselves.
Oh, right.
They're all vying for power, each hoping to gain an advantage in the upcoming leadership race. The return of the wings could tip the scales in favor of one faction or another, creating even more tension and conflict.
It's a political minefield, and the players are right in the middle of it. They need to be diplomats, strategists, and maybe even a little bit lucky if they want to navigate this situation successfully.
And they need to keep a close eye on Rudy and Hubert, who I'm sure will find new and inventive ways to complicate matters. But that's a story for next week's episode.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week for the thrilling conclusion of our deep dive into Gargoyle. We'll follow our heroes as they attempt to return the wings, navigate the treacherous Hool marshes, and maybe even witness the crowning of a new Gargoyle king. Until then, keep those dice rolling, and may your adventures be filled with both laughter and loot. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the module. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the Gargoyle module. We left our heroes in a precarious position. They've recovered the stolen wings from those half-orc assassins, Tom and Jerry, but now they have to figure out how to get them back to Gargoyle Valley before things really go haywire in Rockburgh.
It's a classic race against time scenario, isn't it? You can almost feel the tension building. The gargoyles back in town are getting restless. Their suspicions growing with every passing hour. The players know that if they don't act quickly, the gargoyle treaties could crumble, and Rockburgh could face the full wrath of a leaderless gargoyle horde.
Now, let's not forget the gargoyle leadership race is about to begin. Every gargoyle is eager to get their wings back and compete for the top spot. It's a volatile situation, and the players are carrying a wagon load of highly sought-after appendages. Talk about walking into a powder keg.
It's definitely a delicate situation. The players need to be strategic, not just about getting the wings back to the gargoyles, but about how they distribute them. They need to consider the different gargoyle factions, the power dynamics at play, and the potential consequences of favoring one group over another.
It's a political puzzle, as much as it is a physical challenge. They need to find a way to return the wings in a manner that's perceived as fair and impartial, ensuring that all the gargoyles have an equal chance to compete in the leadership race. If they mess this up, they could inadvertently spark a gargoyle civil war. which would be even worse than a simple human-gargoyle conflict.
Absolutely. And remember, they're not dealing with a monolithic society. The gargoyles have their own internal politics, their own rivalries and alliances. The module hints at three main factions, each with their own agenda and their own preferred candidate for leadership. The players need to tread carefully, gather information, and try to understand the nuances of these relationships if they want to succeed.
It's like a real-life diplomatic mission, except with more gargoyles and a higher chance of accidental combustion.
And speaking of combustion, where do Rudy and Hubert fit into all of this? Are they helping, hindering, or just adding to the general chaos? Oh, they're definitely involved. In fact, they insist on accompanying the players on their mission to Gargoyle Valley. After all, it's their wings that were stolen, and they want to make sure they're returned safely. But as you might imagine, their presence creates complications. That's putting it mildly. I'm picturing those two bumbling around Gargoyle Valley, tripping over rocks, getting lost in caves, and accidentally setting things on fire. It's a recipe for disaster. But it's also incredibly entertaining. It's that perfect blend of high stakes and lighthearted humor that makes Gargoyle so unique.
You're spot on, and the module doesn't disappoint when it comes to Rudy and Hubert's antics. Remember those disguises they decided to wear?
Oh, how could we forget those harem outfits? It's a visual I can't erase from my mind. Two gargoyles, dressed in flowing robes and turbans, stumbling through the wilderness. It's absurd. It's hilarious. And it's so perfectly in line with the overall tone of the module. Exactly. And those outfits come back to haunt them during their journey. Imagine trying to sneak past a group of bandits or navigate a treacherous swamp while wearing a floor-length robe and a wig that's about to fall off. It's a recipe for both disaster and comic relief.
Okay, but let's get back to the mission. The players have the wings. They have Rudy and Hubert in tow, and they're heading towards Gargoyle Valley. But the module doesn't make it easy for them, does it? There are challenges and encounters along the way that really test their skills and their resourcefulness.
That's right. The journey to Gargoyle Valley is a mini-adventure in itself. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. It's about overcoming obstacles, making choices, and dealing with the consequences. And those choices can have a real impact on the story.
It sounds like the module is really encouraging exploration and role-playing, rewarding players who think creatively and who aren't afraid to engage with the world and its inhabitants. It's not just about following a predetermined path. It's about shaping the narrative through your actions and decisions.
Precisely. And the encounters along the way really highlight that aspect of the module. For example, the players might encounter a group of merchants who have been attacked by gnolls and goblins. Now, they could just fight their way through, but there's also the option of diplomacy, of offering aid and assistance in exchange for information or supplies.
It's a chance for the players to flex their role-playing muscles, to demonstrate their compassion and their willingness to help others, even in the midst of their own perilous quest. And who knows, those merchants might have valuable information about the gargoyles, the leadership race, or even the terrain leading to Gargoyle Valley.
Exactly. It's all about those little connections, those seemingly insignificant encounters that can have a ripple effect on the story. And Gargoyle is full of them. The players might encounter a nosy watchman, a group of bandits, or even a mischievous boggart who enjoys playing tricks on travelers.
A boggart. Now that's an interesting encounter. They're known for their shape-shifting abilities and their love of chaos. I can only imagine the trouble they could cause for our heroes, especially with Rudy and Hubert adding to the confusion.
Imagine trying to negotiate with a boggart who keeps changing shape, while Rudy and Hubert are accidentally setting things on fire in the background.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for a hilarious disaster. But it's also a testament to the module's creativity and its willingness to embrace the absurd.
Okay, so the players have faced numerous challenges. They've outsmarted boggarts, they've helped merchants, and they've somehow managed to keep Rudy and Hubert from destroying everything in their path. They've finally reached Gargoyle Valley. But the adventure isn't over yet, is it? There's still the matter of returning the wings and ensuring that the leadership race goes smoothly.
You're absolutely right, and the module offers a dramatic climax that truly puts the player's skills to the test. Gargoyle Valley is a visually stunning setting, with towering cliffs, numerous cave openings, and the imposing Gargoyle Peak at its center.
It's easy to imagine this setting, to picture those majestic gargoyles soaring through the air, their wings catching the sunlight as they race towards the peak. It's a scene straight out of a fantasy novel, a testament to the power of imagination and the magic of D&D.
And at the peak's summit is the artifact that determines the gargoyle leadership, a source of ancient magic and a focal point for the entire gargoyle society. The race is about to begin, And the players need to act quickly if they want to prevent chaos and ensure a peaceful transition of power.
So the pressure's on. They have to distribute the wings in a way that satisfies all the gargoyle factions. They have to navigate the treacherous terrain of Gargoyle Valley. And they have to do it all while keeping those two chaotic gargoyles under control.
It's a tall order, but the players have proved themselves resourceful and adaptable. They've overcome every obstacle so far, and they're determined to succeed. But as with any good D&D adventure, there are always surprises in store.
Ooh, I love surprises. What kind of twists does the module throw at the players in this final act?
Well, one of the most interesting encounters involves a group of gargoyles, representing the different factions, who are guarding the entrance to the valley.
Okay.
The players need to convince them that they're not a threat, that they're here to help, and that they have the stolen wings.
Yeah, that sounds like a delicate negotiation.
Yeah.
These gargoyles are already on edge, suspicious of outsiders and eager to get their wings back.
I imagine that Rudy and Hubert's presence doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
Exactly.
It's a classic example of the module's ability to blend serious situations with comedic elements. The players need to use their diplomacy skills, their knowledge of gargoyle customs, and maybe even a little bit of luck to convince these guardians that they're on the same side.
And if the negotiations fail?
Well, then things could get messy.
Yeah.
The gargoyles might attack, forcing the players to fight their way into the valley, potentially jeopardizing their mission and alienating the very creatures they're trying to help. It's a tense moment, a pivotal point in the story where the players' choices have real consequences.
So they've navigated the Guardians, they've entered Gargoyle Valley, and they're racing against time to distribute the wings and ensure a peaceful leadership transition. But you mentioned surprises earlier. Does the module have any final twists up its sleeve?
It does, and it's a twist that no one sees coming, just as the situation seems hopeless. As the gargoyles are on the verge of chaos, a voice rings out. And that voice belongs to, Hubert.
Hubert, our bumbling, clumsy, accident-prone Hubert. What has he done now?
Somehow, despite his lack of wings, his general clumsiness, and his penchant for creating chaos, Hubert has managed to reach the summit of Gargoyle Peak. He's navigated the treacherous winds surrounding the artifact, he's outmaneuvered his fellow gargoyles, and he's claimed the prize for himself.
Wait, what? Hubert, the new leader of the gargoyles. How is that even possible? Did he fly? Did he climb? Did he teleport?
The module doesn't explain it. It simply states that Hubert has achieved the impossible, that he has defied all odds and become the unlikely king of the gargoyles, and in a moment of surprising authority, he commands the other gargoyles to calm down, to cease their bickering, and to accept his rule.
It's a twist that no one could have predicted, a testament to the module's willingness to embrace the unexpected and to subvert our expectations. The most unlikely hero has emerged victorious, and the fate of both Rockburgh and the gargoyles rests in his clumsy but surprisingly capable hands.
And in a fittingly chaotic conclusion, Hubert distributes the wings to the other gargoyles, ensuring a fair start to the delayed leadership race. He even sends Rudy back to Rockburgh as his emissary, tasked with negotiating the renewal of the gargoyle treaties and ensuring a continued, albeit somewhat uneasy, peace between humans and gargoyles.
It's a satisfying ending, full of humor, heart, and a healthy dose of chaos. It reminds us that even in a world of magic and monsters, the most unexpected individuals can rise to the occasion and make a real difference. And sometimes the best solutions are the ones we least expect.
Well said. Gargoyle is a testament to the enduring appeal of classic D&D adventures. It's a module that's full of surprises, that challenges our assumptions, and that reminds us that even the most seemingly insignificant creatures can have a profound impact on the world around them.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Gargoyle. It's been a wild ride, full of twists, turns, and plenty of gargoyle-induced chaos. We've explored the complexities of the gargoyle treaties, the challenges of interspecies diplomacy, and the importance of embracing the unexpected.
And we've learned that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are the ones who save the day.
Absolutely. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of Greyhawk, and we encourage you to check out Gargoyle for yourselves. It's a classic adventure that's still relevant and engaging today, offering a unique blend of humor, intrigue, and old-school D&D charm.
And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourselves rooting for a certain clumsy, wingless gargoyle.
Until next time, keep those dice rolling, and may your adventures be filled with both laughter and loot. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the module and your own experiences with those lovable, chaotic gargoyles.